Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where I talk about TV shows that are of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the season premiere of The Originals, a fantastic season premiere. We finally get to find out where this whole time skip takes place. We got another time skip, this one being of 7 years. I was like, wow. Because I already knew it was a good chunk of time because even from the Comic-Con trailers way back, it was we saw Hope as a teenager. So it's been a good couple years. And I think it was, dude, this season's got me so excited. Obviously, we're going into this knowing that this is the final season, but it's so interesting to see everyone else kind of split up. Obviously, you have Freya, Haley, Vincent, and Josh kind of being the representatives of the quarter to kind of keep the balance. They're kind of like the four heads that kind of run things. I guess kind of like the Mystic, the families that kind of ran things in Mystic Falls that kind of represent that, each one representing one of the groups. Obviously, you have Freya representing the witches, Haley representing the wolves, and Josh representing the vampires. It's kind of interesting with Haley's position being a hybrid and everything, and just being kind of a Mikaelson. That's kind of a whole thing all on its own. But nevertheless, it's so interesting because literally, and it's something that's popped up through the entire series, is the whole powder keg that is the quarter. That literally is trying to keep this peace between the vampires, the witches, the wolves, and it's lasted for 7 years, but things are just bubbling beneath the surface. It's just going to take one thing to set everything ablaze, essentially. Then on top of that, you had the whole Mikaelson situations where it's the siblings all kind of off on their own. Elijah not having his memories, which is interesting because Haley kind of was she kind of hesitated to even say it out loud. I guess it's because I'm blanking, but no one actually told her, right? Because I don't think even Elijah told her. He just went off and did it. So I guess, Vincent was there, so he was probably one of the people that informed her. So it's kind of sucky. Because it's like I said, I'm pretty sure Elijah didn't actually go to her when he told her the truth, or told her about it. Maybe he did, and I'm not remembering correctly, but I'm pretty sure it's probably Vincent told her, which is kind of a sucky way to find out the truth. But obviously Haley and Elijah have had their complicated relationship, especially last season. She kind of saw she always knew there was kind of a darker side of Elijah, but she never knew it until she saw it. Interesting. I guess it's because Elijah's darker side is kind of hidden away, whereas Klaus's, his is kind of all out in the open. So with Klaus, you kind of know what you're getting with. Elijah, a lot of the stuff he's done in his past, you don't know about because he keeps that shit kind of buried very deep. Yeah, Rebecca and Marcel. That was a pretty sweet proposal. I'm like, oh my god, that's so sweet. He's like, got all these different things. This dress, this picture of the house he wants to build for them. It's just beautiful, and she doesn't really know what to say. Because I really like that aspect about Rebecca in this. She says it's initially about her family, but even her, she's just kind of but it's just because I'm good at running away. I'm doing what I've always done. I say it's about my family, but it's not just that. It's just because I think for her, it's commitment scary, especially being because maybe on some level she's afraid that she's going to mess it up, because her and Marcel, much like everything else related to the Mikaelsons, has always been extremely complicated. They've always had their ups and downs over the time that they've been alive, and I think on some level she's just scared that she's going to ruin it, especially with everything. On top of that, plus what's going on with her siblings, which obviously Marcel's kind of I've waited not just these past 7 years. Your family has always kind of come first between you and me. It's always been a complication. It's no more, let's just kind of be happy for us, but that doesn't necessarily work. You even have Marcel, interestingly enough, still running things. Because even Rebecca called him out. It's you want to talk to me about me still holding on to my siblings and stuff. What about you? Your refusal to let go of New Orleans? Because for such a long time, that was his city. So obviously, he's telling Josh how the vampire should run. He's giving advice to Josh, but oh yeah, run the city like this. Which Vincent's stop doing that. This isn't Marcel's city. This isn't the Mikaelson. This is us. We're the one handling things, and if we go down that route, we're just going to be spiraling. So all the while, you have Klaus going on a killing spree for the past 5 years, which is why are you doing that? And his reasons are actually kind of sweet. It's basically, for him, it's Klaus is always worried about enemies around every corner because Klaus is very paranoid. That's just part of who he is. He sees enemies in every corner. To be fair, I've talked about that a lot too. They've made a lot of enemies over the years. In his case, he's trying to wipe out any enemies that could exist, even heirs to the enemies, because hatred has like a long memory, so he's always worried about people coming for retribution, especially because Elijah's in a fragile state. Which I'm curious, does even Elijah know what he is? I would assume he does. I mean, he has to eat. So I'm curious how that whole situation happened. I mean, that's something we haven't even tackled yet. I mean, he doesn't remember his family. He doesn't remember the promise of forever. Like, all of that is gone. I mean, it's not completely gone. Like, with the whole compelling situation, it's there in the back of his mind. You just can't really access it. But I'm curious, like, how he handles all of that. Like, we get peeks into Elijah's life, but that's about it. It's kind of sweet that, like, Klaus, like, walked up to him, because Klaus, even when he was talking to Rebecca, it's like, this was actually the first time he'd actually talked to Elijah, because we saw him at the end of season 4 for now. He stopped by, he didn't say anything because he realized that Elijah didn't recognize him, and he let it be. But and that's such a heartbreaking thing, because for him, it's like, my brother's there, but it actually hurt less if he was dead, because the fact of the matter is, I can see that my brother's alive, but he's not my brother. He doesn't remember me. He doesn't know anything. He kept me centered. He kept me balanced. And now that he's gone, like, Klaus feels a little lost. It's the reason why he's doing all this too. But mainly it's just because, like, Elijah won't know what an enemy is. And, you know, once again, it's mainly Klaus's paranoia, but I mean, there still could be plenty of people that would want the Mikaelsons dead, could easily go after Elijah in this state. He wouldn't, you know, he could easily... I mean, being an original, I wouldn't think it'd be that, you know, bit of a complicated situation, or like having to, like, Elijah would be able to defend himself when the time came, but with his mind the way it is, who's to say how true that is? It was nice to see Caroline again. Like, she was the one Rebecca called, which I'm not surprised. Like I said, I already kind of got this spoiled because I saw some images here and there that showed Caroline. I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. I was like, what? She's in this. So I think we will be seeing her more this season. But, because when it comes to, like, the whole situation, she is one of the few people that's have, like, a positive relationship with Klaus. Like, yes, it's been complicated, like any relationship with Klaus, but, you know, they've had their, positive things. And, like, she's even trying to, she understands where he's coming from too, because she's just kind of like, she's one of the few people that like kind of slaps, like, Klaus out of his bullshit, because she's like, stop being an idiot. Talk to your daughter. You're up here moping and stuff like that because, like, oh, you had a terrible father and you don't want to be a terrible. It's like, shut up about Michael. Stop using Michael as an excuse for your own bad behavior. Your daughter is out there. She's missing you. Talk to her. And you know, because that hits personal for Caroline too, is because she misses her. Like, she never really got to know her dad growing up, and she ended up losing her mom. It's like, she knows what it's like to, like, miss a parent like crazy. Like, let's not forget what happened to Caroline when her mom died, like the self-destructive path she went on, like taking off her humanity and clicking off her humanity and stuff like that. So, you know, that is something that has to be considered as well. But even Caroline's like, yeah, like, cause, you know, cause I'm sure, like, I know you kind of person you are, Klaus, and, you know, your daughter's better off knowing you. And it's like, oh, which immediately my brain goes, is that going to be a thing? Cause the sad thing is, it's such a complicated situation, cause there was a whole Stefan in her situation, but then obviously which is sad because this is like years after Stefan died, because, like, it's been like 12 years since Stefan died, because from season 3 to season 4 there was like a 5-year gap, and I'm pretty no, because it's only been like 9, because I think I keep forgetting the fact that between season 3 and 4 that was also catching up the timeline with the Vampire Diaries 3-year skip. Like, that didn't happen until then, that it caught up to the 3-year skip that took place in season 7, and plus the current timeline in the 8th and final season. So it's only been 9 years potentially. I think that's right. So I'm sure, you know, especially for a vampire, you know, you live a long time. So I don't know if that's what they're setting up, because Klaus hasn't been in one since, like, Cammy, so he knows what that's like too. I mean, they've found their way back into each other's lives and stuff like that. So, but what's interesting too is this whole Hope situation. She's kind of like, in a sense, you can kind of understand why she's doing what she's doing. She's kind of acting out a bit. Just because, like, Klaus hasn't talked to her, and, like, they talked obviously those first 2 years, but she's like, around 5 years ago he just stopped. That's just because, you know, Klaus does what he does. He wants to keep his distance because he never wants to let Hope down, because he feels like, oh, she's better off without me. It's like, I love her, she's amazing. I don't want to ruin her. I don't want to end up destroying what makes her amazing because of my own bullshit, you know. So, like, it's like Klaus is like a really, like, he's complicated, but he actually, when it comes down to it, he's actually a good dad, you know, because he really loves his daughter and cares for her. But we have her as a teenager, and she helps this boy Henry become like, I was like, oh, she's helping him become a vampire. I was like, oh, that's weird. It's like, nope, she's helping him become a hybrid, which even I like, hey, because I do appreciate Haley kind of pointing that out, because it's like, yeah, like you literally put a kid who's already having trouble enough being bullied into an even worse situation because you made him one of 3 that exist in this entire world. Like Klaus, Haley, and Henry are now the only hybrids. It's like that puts you in a class all your own, because it's like, well, not because, you know, hybrids are dangerous because they're so powerful they could kill vampires, so that's already going to put a staple on his back. He's not, you know, because he's no longer he's not a vampire, he's not a werewolf, he's something in between, something powerful, something deadly. So obviously everyone's going to fear you. And for Haley, she didn't really think about that. Like, she was so caught up in what she wanted, and that was, you know, obviously get money to try and track down Klaus. And, you know, because she missed her dad, and she kind of because it's interesting too, because at the school no one knows about her being Klaus's daughter, which makes sense, because the last thing you want is like, oh, that's Klaus's daughter. Like, you know, people who have a problem with Klaus and all that he's done will come after her, so they obviously hid her last name and stuff like that. But still, like, it seemed like Henry was the only one who really knows about who she really is. But because that situation becomes a problem on its own, Henry, the lady that's looking after Henry, is like, you know, pissed at Haley for letting this happen. It's like, but are you coming at me as a Crescent Wolf, or are you coming at me as a Mikaelson? And it's like, no, I'm coming at you as a mom. It's like, I understand what Haley did was Hope did was stupid, and I want to try and help with the situation the best I can. I mean, and it gets worse because he ended up killing a vampire, and it's just like, also what's interesting too, I almost let it slip my mind, the whole like sire situation, until like he was like, feel better. I was like, oh, is that just Hope's powers? Like, no, he's sire to him. Like, right. I guess that's going to be something that comes up more, because Haley is talking about training him to kind of learn how to kind of control his impulses, because everything is heightened even more. Things are already heightened as a vampire, but it gets even worse as a hybrid. Your senses are even more heightened, because you're literally representing 2 different heightened supernatural creatures. So combine those, get even more heightened senses and just impulses and stuff like that. So you have the whole Freya situation, which I'm completely about to skip over. It's like, yeah, she's missing Keelan, which Keelan's part of some program. I guess it's kind of like she's off being a doctor in other places. Obviously she wants Freya to come with her, but Freya's kind of like, I gotta stay. You know, she wants to stay in New Orleans, because I guess for her, it's like, that's the greatest place, the biggest place, you know, probably connected, you know, a good number of witches and people she can bounce ideas off. Like, it's probably like the best place to kind of connect with magic to try and fix her family situation. But, because Keelan's kind of like, oh, you can do it anywhere. But I think it's just because Freya's kind of scared too, because it's like, she even talks about it with Vincent. It's like, everything that's going down, she's afraid to leave, because like, you know, but she knows that if she doesn't, like, she might lose Keelan. Also, let's not forget Haley's dating too, a human at that. And that's interesting, which she's trying to keep him out of this whole situation. So then you have Cole, which it seems like out of any of the siblings, it seems like he's doing the best. He seems like to be the one that's kind of okay. I do like the fact is that he's kind of like, oh yeah, talking about the black, you know, it's hard being the black sheep of the family. And she's like, oh, you're talking about my dad? It's like, no, I'm talking about myself. Because it's like, yeah, Klaus is in a whole other league all on his own. Not just a black sheep. He's just kind of, he's something else entirely. But Cole brought up something I thought was kind of interesting. He was like, you know, our family, usually it'll be some kind of terrible disaster that ends up bringing us back together. And Hope had this look on her face that made me go, it's like, legitimately, like, is some of this going to be Hope's way of stirring up trouble to draw her family back together? Like, I don't know, like Haley disappearing, like someone kidnapped Haley. I guess that would have to have something to do with the whole Henry situation. Maybe it's some Crescent Wolves who don't like the way she runs things. I mean, because vampires were kind of getting a little antsy because of the whole Poppy situation of her dying. So there's that. Maybe it's more to it. Maybe because of her connection to the Mikaelsons that someone's coming after her. Also, really quickly, I completely forgot to mention this. There's that dude that was there. He's Alaric's kind of assistant. He was like his he's part of that whole situation in the Vampire Like, that's also something I never brought up too. Like, that situation never got that was that whole thing. Was it TA's? Like, you remember his other TA that never came back in other shape or form, like the one that died. Nevertheless, I'm blanking on some stuff. Nevertheless, I'm moving on. Sorry. It was just kind of interesting seeing. It's like, oh, he's the dude that had like a huge problem with Stefan even tried to kill Stefan. Was that the second to last season or the last season? That might have been the last season, I think, because Stefan had killed someone in his family. I think it was when Stefan was in one of his Ripper modes. But nevertheless, and I like that little monologue from Vincent. That was pretty nice, of just how the fact of the matter is, you never know what a tipping point was until it's always in retrospect, because you never see it coming. It's always like, oh, you can look back on it in hindsight. But it's like, in hindsight, how do we ever know whether something it's like the beginning or whether it's really just the end, And I just thought that whole thing was, and I love this aspect of like this whole like hollow situation is biblical. I feel like it was hardcore last season, but it's like it's reaching biblical levels. Plants are dying anytime the Mikaelsons are together. Like water starts turning into blood, not just anywhere. It seems like everywhere. Like even in France. It started there, but then it started happening all the way in New Orleans too. It's like, what? That's crazy. And then Benson at the end, there's like blood raining down because Rebecca's with Elijah now. She goes and talks to him. Obviously, like it seems like Klaus has probably pushed it the most because it's something Rebecca kept throwing, but this is like the furthest he pushed it because blood was spewing everywhere. Because it also happened in New York too, so it's like, wow, like this is all new levels of biblical. But it's like, could it really just be that, or is there more to this than that? Like, I don't know. It seems like there definitely is more to it, Maybe there's some other forces here. And obviously I've caught glimpses of the season, but it is that situation of, and it's sad because it's like no matter what the circumstances may be, even if they are in the situation they can't stay away from each other. It's like, it's been 7 years and it's been killing them every moment that they can't be with each other. It's like I've said this countless times too, no matter how messed up the Mikaelson family is, they love each other. Like I said, it seems like the most one that's simply okay with everything is Cole, but I feel like the one, obviously it affects the three of them the most, Rebecca, Elijah, and Klaus, because that promise was started with them. Those three have always been the core of this show, and they've been the kind of the core of this family, and like their bond is probably the strongest amongst the family, So that's why this has probably been ripping at them like every second of every day. And especially for someone like Klaus, who Elijah was his better half, kept him in check. And you could make the argument that him killing people is also him lashing out because it's like, I miss my brother. Like my brother is here and we're in the same place, but he doesn't know me and I can't say anything because he is happy, and I don't want to destroy that happiness, but I miss my brother, so, but Haley is gone. Klaus calls, and Hope is like, I don't know, mom's missing. And you have Klaus going, okay, I'm on my way. It's like, what? It's because no matter what, because I think he was waiting for that excuse to come back home anyway, to kind of, so he doesn't need to come back home. There are plenty of people that can handle this situation, but he feels the need to, because I think talking to Caroline, hearing Hope's voice after all this time, it probably made him decide, like, I want any excuse to go back home to see my little girl. So I don't know. Like I said, this is just like a fantastic introduction. It makes you feel good. You just get all giddy. You're like, dude, so much is happening. Even though it's like majorly a setup episode is kind of the biggest thing. But I'm so curious. Like, obviously, it's like, because even Vincent says it, like, obviously it's like, it's in the confines of the show, but also it's kind of like a fourth wall breaking conversation of even Vincent's like, yeah, I don't know how this will all end. It's like, nobody does. And I'm so curious to see, because like I said, Freya's nowhere near close to figuring it out, because for her, it's like, well, to figure it out, I would need to get my siblings back in the same city. But if I do that, then like, obviously the biblical stuff that's happening, which is incredible considering the fact is it's only two of them in the same area and it's causing biblical problems, which I guess that's starting to mean that maybe the separation is getting weaker, that even while they're separated as much as they are, the fact is that when they spend so much time, when even just two of them spend so much time close together, the barriers start weakening on the other two as well. So maybe that's what that's representing, that eventually, no matter how far apart they are, it won't be far enough, considering the fact is, it's like, well, there's only so far you can go on this one planet, which, I mean, obviously at the beginning you're kind of like, well, there's a lot of places to be, but it's like, which I was thinking that was kind of interesting. I'm like, oh wow, Elijah's in France too. It's like, nope, that's on purpose. Klaus is always, and it kind of fits with what Klaus was talking about, like getting rid of any enemies that could potentially come after Elijah. So, like I said, I am so fascinated to see how everything plays out. Because it's not just them coming back to this, well, at least Klaus. We also have Marcel, which is going to be interesting. That's definitely going to be interesting because it's going to raise some red flags once, like, oh, my Klaus is bad. Oh, crap, there's going to be more trouble. Like I said, everything between the three groups I mean, we don't really know where the humans stand all in this too. Like, there's very few humans are in the know about what goes down in New Orleans with this whole situation. So, because the last humans who really knew what was up, God, it's Jason Doring's character last season. He was like the last human to know about everything, I think. I mean, obviously he's currently on iZombie as Chase. But I think so because he learned everything from Cammy about everything. But nevertheless, I'm very interested to see what goes on. I'm curious to see, is it going to be like a main antagonist from there? Like, obviously this is going to deal with the Mikaelson and his family. Like, this is the closing chapter for their story. But also, like, I wonder, is there going to be any enemies from their past that might be behind this or something? I don't know. And I'm so excited to find out how this all plays out, especially what goes down in the next episode. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good